We have entered that time of Lent, which could easily be referred to as late Lent. We're 2 weeks from Easter. 2 weeks from this later this evening, we will celebrate the Easter Vigil, the beginning of the celebration of Easter. And we continue through this journey. The Gospels are getting longer. We're hearing more of these stories of the Gospel, the Word of God, telling us these stories about who Jesus is, the works he's doing as he's getting closer and closer to Mount Calvary. We're also experiencing the season of Lent. Hopefully your own Lenten practices are going well. If they're not, it's okay. We all struggle with them. Buckle down and continue on. But as well, this morning I had a blessing of being able to go to our Diocesan Men's Conference at Cardinal O'Hara High School in Tonawanda, and with many of my brother priests, heard confessions for a couple hours, and then got to hear a wonderful talk from one of my brother priests. Hopped in the car, came back here, and heard our parish confessions here before Mass. In season of penance, it's a good time to make sure we go to confession. But as I was walking from my car, from the school to my car, which I had to park way down because 700 cars potentially take up a lot of room, and Cardinal O'Hara's parking lot is not that large, I struck up a brief conversation with a gentleman I'd never met before. And we were, of course, talking about the rain as it fell on our heads, the weather of Western New York. We've seen that kind of transition, and we kind of sit there and go, has it really stopped snowing yet? Is it really going to get a little bit warmer? Is spring finally here? We won't know until probably mid-May exactly when spring will start here in Western New York. But the reality was, it was raining. And it put me kind of in this meditative mood of thinking about spring. Now we call this season Lent. It's a strange name, actually. What does Lent mean? Where does it come from? It actually is a word that goes back to older English that refers to springtime. It's an interesting reason that we call in English this season Lent. Now, outside of the church and the liturgies we're celebrating during this season, this past weekend and this weekend are known, at least here in Western New York and throughout New York State, as Maple Weekend. So things are warming up, spring is surely coming, and the sap in maple trees is beginning to flow again. I know growing up, I always had the joy with my siblings and my parents. We'd hop in the car on Maple Weekend, we'd ride out to one of the sugar shacks or multiple of them. We go on the hayride, we'd see how they're boiling down the sap to make maple syrup. We'd maybe get a little bit of the maple candy, that little bit of a sweet treat during Lent. But in order for maple syrup to be made, in order for the sap to get flowing in the trees, spring has to begin. It has to be the right temperature both during the day and at night. And if it doesn't meet that, well, then you can't get the sap. And at the same time, as soon as the trees begin to bud, you can't use that sap anymore to make maple syrup. Spring is here. It's an interesting time. The trees are yet bare, and it still looks like winter outside. And yet, the trees, even before that first bright snap of green appears, they begin to move internally, to begin that process of preparing for spring and summer. We ourselves are kind of going through that as well in our own lives. Lent, that season, interesting, named for that word that means spring. Is the sap moving within us? And I'm not talking about our blood flowing through our veins. I'm talking about the spiritual sap. Are we fully preparing Can we feel that movement to the joy of Easter as we move through this Lenten season? Can we feel that life of faith flowing within us anew because of the practices that we have been going through over these past weeks? Just as we heard Jesus today in the gospel, going and using a moment, the death of a friend, to show what he is going to work, to bring back to life. He resurrects Lazarus from the dead. In his divinity, he has this power, this authority to do this. In his humanity, he is weeping for a friend. And he grows and feels the emotions that we all do. This movement within him of compassion, this movement within him of a desire that the people may see who he is. Are we allowing ourselves to see who Jesus is anew? To allow ourselves to be filled, to feel that spiritual sap flowing through us anew as we're going through this season. Easter is coming rather quickly. Let's make sure that we are preparing ourselves to celebrate with renewed joy the Paschal festivities.